Hi kids, we're back. We're today going to have a brief little lecture on the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. And so I want you to pay close attention and take good notes and make sure that you sort of get this piece of the puzzle. Um, and then we'll move on from there, all right? So we're going to talk about this Japanese invasion of Manchuria, but first let's talk about what's going on in Japan. All right. Of course, we know that Japan did fight with the Allies in the World War One. All right. But of course, they, as well as Italy and other nations, were sort of disappointed by the gains they received from 1919 to 1920 peace settlements. All right. So the depression is going to hit in the early 1930s, and Japan, as well as many other countries, were badly affected. And the nationalists in the country, they wanted to press for Japanese conquest to aid in the economy. Remember we talked about the Depression, and this led not only to dictators coming to power, but also for countries to sort of pursue their expansionist policies into other countries, seeking resources, all right, seeking an outlet to sort of help the economy revive, all right? Of course, for Japan, Asia was the natural area for expansion, all right? Mainland China, all right? Now, this brought Japan into potential conflict with those European nations that already had interest in the Asian colonies. Of course, Britain, France, and the Netherlands, all right? Now, it also concerned USA because USA wanted to also expand its interests in Asia, all right? Now, the army was really the most dominant figure in Japan. It was more so than the civilian government. So the Japanese military sort of had more power. All right, the military leaders and the generals had more power per se than the government. All right, and this, of course, was linked to industrial companies. And they wanted more aggressive foreign policies. Once again, those natural resources and seeking sources abroad. Of course, we know that Japan is an island nation, and of course, there's so many resources that Japan had. All right. Now, these military influence increased even further after the 1930s when we had this serious drop in exports led to a political crisis. All right. One of the things that we'll know, we do know that Japan occupied Korea. All right. And remember, Japan beat Russia in that Russo-Japanese War, and it formally annexed it in 1910. All right. Now, the nationalists in Japan, they had all these economic interests, and they wanted to expand into Manchuria, which at the time was most of which was ruled by China. All right, and by 1927, firms owned most of Manchuria's mines, factories, and these are Japanese firms and ports, as you see here. All right, and to protect these interests, Japan was actually allowed a base, a large military base in southern Manchuria. So not only did they have the business and controlled most of the business and the manufacturing there, they also had a military base. So it's going to make it easier for them to sort of seize parts of Manchuria. All right. So in 1931, 1932, Japan is going to invade Manchuria. All right. This new nationalist government was established in China, and Japan feared that with this new government in place, that it would want to reestablish its Chinese control over Manchuria. Okay. And so they thought they would lose their interest. So in essence, Japan is going to sort of stage an attack, and it was near the town called Mukden, and we'll look at the Mukden incident. All right, and this was on the Japanese-owned South Manchurian Railway, which ran into and through Manchuria. All right, now this Mukden incident, it was used basically to justify sending in Japanese army of occupation, because we have this incident where this army is going to stage this attack, and it's like we're trying to defend our interests here. And next thing you know, the Japanese army is in in Manchuria. All right. Of course, the government was like, hey, no, you need to withdraw. But once again, like I said before, the military sort of was the ruling power here. All right. Now, the Japanese invasion was a breach of the League's collective security system. Remember, we talked about that. So this was the first time that a nation is going to sort of challenge the terms of this League of Nations, and Japan was a member. All right. So both China and Japan were League members. All right. Now, the invasion of Manchuria also defied the Washington Naval Treaty of 1922. So right here, you're going to see me recap the Washington Naval Treaty. All right, and this basically was to improve relations between the USA and Japan, and they wanted to prevent the naval buildup between the Japanese Navy and the USA, and the Western powers promised not to build any more naval bases within striking distance of Japan, and the USA, Japan, Britain, and France agreed to guarantee the neutrality of China and respect each other's possessions in the Far East. So that was that treaty that was signed in 1922, and when Japan decides to invade Manchuria, all right, it broke the terms of this treaty, all right? So at Japan's suggestion, the League set up a commission after they invaded of inquiry, and this was just basically to see what happened and try to come to the bottom of this incident. And it was headed by Britain Lord Lytton, all right, to investigate the situation. So the Lytton, or you might hear it pronounced as Lytton Commission, they did not report until November of 1932. And of course, this is 11 months after Japan had established complete control of Manchuria. So Japan had been there for over 11 months, and all of a sudden the results of this report comes out. So what do you think is sort of the implied here, all right? You let this go on for so long, and all of a sudden now the contents of this report. Now the report went as far as to criticize both China and Japan, all right? But it did not recommend either economic or military sanctions. So yes, the report did state that Japan was wrong for invading Manchuria, but there was no kind of repercussions for their actions. All right. Now, the League accepted the report in February 1933 and admitting the validity of Japanese claims, and the report stated that Japan was wrong to have used force and should have therefore withdraw the troops. Japan doesn't like this, and so Japan is going to withdraw from the League of Nations. Okay? So what was this whole impact? What was the big deal here with this Japanese invasion of Manchuria? Well, the Manchurian crisis, it showed that the collective security, this whole idea of collective security, was not working. All right, in practice. It was good on paper, but in practice, there was no way to really enforce it because no one was willing to enforce any kind of military economic sanctions. Remember, there has to be a unanimous vote in order to impose such sanctions. All right, so it wasn't necessarily a time where, you know, if 2 or 3 countries agree, then it's going to happen. All right. All right. So the USA and countries within Europe are more concerned with their domestic economic issues. Remember, this is still the the beginnings of this whole Great Depression time period, and it impacted a lot of countries. All right. So no one really wanted to get involved in these foreign affairs. So it was like, okay, we have other pressing issues to worry about. Now, the Soviet Union considered Japanese active aggression to be a direct threat to its Asian territories. It was willing to act, of course. No one wanted to cooperate with the communist regime in the Soviet Union. Here we go. We see that again. All right. So there you see sort of the map when Japan invades Manchuria in 1931. So there you have Tokyo, Japan, this archipelago, and then there's Manchuria. All right. And those are the troops actually occupying Manchuria. And there you have it. All right. Now, there is a reading to sort of go along with this to help to summarize this information and to help bring it home to you. So make sure you take a few seconds to complete the reading and do the questions and write down any questions that you have or something that wasn't clear. All right. Have a good one.